The most basic thing of reporting, this is HTML reporting, not Office Connect or Discovery, is did you know you can set up favourites like this? So many people, you go reports, most people don't have this at all. It just says reports, and you go overview, then you go shared folders, and you go Did you know you can set up your favourites? So this is how you do it. Go on any report that's in any one of these folders, right click, add to favourites. That will then make it available on your first level drop down. Calculated accounts on reports. They're not for everybody, but it's a question that came up quite recently actually for somebody who needs to have a report that doesn't show, like this is a good example, this is a real example, total income. For those of you who are very familiar with your structures of Adaptive, revenue is a root account, non-operating income is a root account. There is no natural addition of those two. But on this report, this is for the board, I don't want to see revenue, non-operating income, it's just income, it's fine. Now in Office Connect you can do it, you can hide the row, you can do whatever you like. You could set up a metric account, which would probably be best practice. But in the actual case, what you can do, on the report, this bit's greyed out, but if you go to Calculations, Custom, you can create that calculation there just by clicking. So that is revenue plus non-op income. And then you can drag the result of your report, the result of your calculation onto your report, so it keeps it neat. As I say, it's not for everyone, and I don't think it's best practice. I think what we should be doing is setting up an account called total income, which is a metric account that adds it so that everyone's got the same definition. But there are use cases for this.
If you're having to produce a report quickly, finance directors come in, I've got to have this by lunchtime, and you want a fast way to get a total income, whatever the situation is, that's the fastest way to do it. If it's like to be repeated, we recommend you put it on a metric account so that everyone's always putting the same calculation for reasons that I said earlier.
It's a workaround for the fact that you can't hide rows on an HTML report. There is no way to hide rows, so the solution is don't put them on there at all. The better solution is build metrics. This one's really interesting. Audit trail search. When we do the demos, I'm always demoing to people and say, look, if I drill into this cell, on this sheet, on this version, you can see who changed it and when. The reality is nobody ever goes into a sheet, drills in and says, oh, I wonder what the audit trail is on there. The problem you come across is that number's changed. I didn't think that was going to change. We're not locked yet, the version is not finished, but I didn't think it was going to change. So, again, most people know this, but if you don't, then worth knowing, when you go to your reports, up here, new report, audit trail search, then you can go, this is the advanced one, there's a button, this is switch to basic, the opposite is switch to advanced. So I can then run a report that says, okay, show me for this level, in this case for all the GL accounts, between this time frame, by this user, and then I can run that. Now, that's quite precise. Actually, probably more likely what you're doing is, I don't care, I want to know which user it was. So, you don't tick this, all users, just this GL account. In the last 2 days, what's changed? Because I didn't think anything was going to change. And then, you run a report, and then you get something that looks like that and shows you all the changes. So in this case, because I ran it across all GL accounts, that's all the GL accounts that were changed by me within that date, from that to that. So you've got the full trail there. If these were shared formally, it would give you a, so you can, there I can click on that and zoom into it. If it was shared formally, you can go there and actually go and see the formula that's changed. So it's not just data. If you're changing shared formally, global formally, then you can see them there as well. And you see the impact of that. I don't know if you covered this earlier on, so with filters. Do it again anyway. So, Office Connect, we've done some sessions with Sue earlier on. And Sue, I'm sure, talked to you about the fact that you set variables, if you like, on elements, is the word I was looking for. On rows, on columns, on cells, and there's a kind of pecking order. There's defaults, then you apply settings to the workbook, then the sheet, then the column, then the row, and what you end up is the net result. So this one here is the net result of this account for this month, for this level, for this version. The point I'm going to show you here is how you make that more dynamic. So in this example here, I've got actual versus budget there, and I've got actual versus forecast here. What I want to do is when I move on to a 6+6, is have this automatically know that it's 6+6. I'm just looking at that's versus budget, and this is always against the latest forecast. And so the trick is to not put a version on here. So you put a version on here because it's actual, you put a version on here because it's budget. If you don't put a version on here, then there's nothing here to override your workbook properties, and then your workbook property says there, 3+9 for example. So it's by leaving off things, it kind of gives you a filter if you like. So what you have is the ability to filter at a workbook level or a sheet level, and then that's overridden by rows and columns. Clearly if you leave the rows and columns blank, it just goes back up the chain. So that enables you to have a dynamic report that says this versus latest forecast, and that will obviously update because that's a label as well. This is my big bugbear, and Steve talked about it earlier on. This is a Office Connect report. Blue ones mean they come from Adaptive. Look, all of these, revenue per head, gross margin per head, OPEX per head, average salary, make them defined terms in Adaptive. So that anybody who runs a report knows that revenue per head is that. It's a dictionary. We've defined what revenue per head means. It doesn't include maternity leave, it doesn't include sick pay, revenue doesn't include credit notes, or whether it does or it doesn't matter. It's a constant definition. One of the downsides of the flexibility of Office Connect is that you can bring in all this stuff and know that it's great and it's reliable from Adaptive, and you can create your own little formulas on the bottom. Well, that's the downside. It's great that you can reformat things, you can make them look neat and tidy, but if you start putting your own formula in, then you're back to the situation you talked about, Ryan. You walk into the room, my revenue per head's this. Someone says, no, it's not. Revenue per head's that. You know, what's the definition of revenue per head? It's because you've defined it as this and you've defined it as that. If you can get to the stage where you have a corporate dictionary, if that's the right phrase, then you put them in Adaptive and everyone just drags on revenue per head onto their report. Not in the Office Connect, on reporting, dashboarding, anything you like. Decide what your KPIs are, your metrics, build them as metric accounts, and then you just drag them onto reports and everyone's got the same version of the truth. Okay, last one, and again, Guy may have done this as well. So we're in Discovery, we're in Dashboarding, you can do this one instead. If you right click on any of these bars, you can drill in, and you can drill in by dimension, which is great and really powerful, except that, for example, in my demo system, we've got 101 different dimensions, and they're all in use in different parts of the model. So we've got asset class, we've got job role, we've got grade, we've got, is it a billable resource, yes or no, we've got a professional services role, but those are not relevant to the product revenue line. Now this is, it's called a hidden button in Adaptive, because they haven't publicised it, they haven't talked about it, and if you search hard enough there is some documentation, but it seems quite new, that you can now determine what appears in that list. And I didn't know about it until a couple of weeks ago. So that's what I've done now. I right-clicked and I saw the whole list. Now what we're going to do is go to Edit. So when you're in Dashboarding, most of you probably just use Dashboard. When you want to edit them, you click on Edit, there. And then when you're in the editing, you go to your accounts, you go to the account that you want to worry about, and then if you hover over it, but not if you don't, there are 3 little dots there. Secret passageway. And then you can change your drill options. And from there, you can see here, I've defined that I only want this to be available for customer, product, things that are relevant. But also notice, I can do it by attribute, you can't read that, but these are attributes, so they don't have to be dimensions. So here, it's customer and product. My product happens to have attributes, small, medium, large, red, blue, green. So that then means that now, 1, it's a shorter list, but 2, it is made up of attributes. So I can filter this by customer, level and product, but also by product family, by product size, by market sector. That ability to report attributes in Discovery is relatively new. I think that was the start of this year, wasn't it? And again, not that well known. So if you think about using attributes on your dimensions, you've always been able to do it in reporting, you can now do it in Discovery. Combine that with limiting that list to what's meaningful for that graph, because if you've got your exec using it, you say, oh, you can drill by this. You go, well, how can I drill to revenue by asset class? Oh, try and look at that. You don't want people messing about with that because you lose faith in the system. Everything comes up as uncategorised, doesn't make any sense. If you only include that which is meaningful, then you're halfway there to get people's buy-in. But I can click on that and I can find out the data that I want.